Well, most of you have seen the news by now, or at least caught the clips of it on social media. Mexican drug lord Nemesio Oseguera, aka El Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, has been killed. In the early morning hours of February 22nd, in the small town of Tapalpa in the state of Jalisco, Mexico, his safe house was ambushed by Special Operations Forces, a shootout ensued, and Mencho died of gunshot wounds on a medevac helicopter en route to Mexico City. What ensued afterwards, of course, was chaos. Thousands of sicarios from all over Jalisco went on a rampage, setting fire to cars, buses, gas stations, businesses. They stormed the international airport in Guadalajara. They set up roadblocks or narcobloqueas all over the state. They even got the airport in Puerto Vallarta shut down, causing thousands of gringos to miss their flights. This made me a little happy, thinking of a bunch of gay Canadian tourists and fat chicks stressing out about a slight interruption to their travel plans, who have not the slightest clue who Mencho or the CJNG is. But it's not just roadblocks and fire bombings, of course. Cartel sicarios are actively targeting members of the Guardia Nacional, the Mexican National Guard, and as of this morning, according to my contacts in Jalisco, they've also put an open bounty on the military as well, 20,000 pesos per head and 10,000 for their family members. That's like a couple $100, if you can believe it. Now, obviously, we can expect more violence and assassinations in the coming days. The Mexican government is taking it so seriously, in fact, that they moved President Claudia Sheinbaum to a military aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean until all of this conflagration in Jalisco blows over. So before I get into where I think all of this is going, let's answer a few obvious questions. The first is, how did they locate him? Mencho was like Osama bin Laden. He never slept in the same place for more than a few nights. He was flanked by an elite security team, a private army, if you will, comprised of defectors from the Mexican military. He also received plenty of intel from law enforcement like the National Guard, who helped him escape capture last year during a raid on one of his compounds in the state of Guanajuato. So perhaps this time there was a leak within the National Guard, an informant, and this explains why they're being targeted so systematically by the cartel, for their betrayal. I've also read reports that there could have been a leak from a small private hospital where Mencho was receiving dialysis treatment for his kidney disease. Now, for years, we've all heard about how the drug lord had special clandestine medical facilities set up wherever he was hiding out in order to get treatment. But for some reason, lately, he's had to use public dialysis clinics in small towns throughout Jalisco, leaving him more vulnerable to detection. It could be any number of things. I just read a report on my phone right before we did this recording that there's rumors it could have been a lover of Mencho's, one of his mistresses who was coming to visit him, who ended up leaking his whereabouts. But whoever it is, whoever leaked Mencho's whereabouts, it likely had something to do with the Navy SEALs who entered Mexico on February 15th, with permission from the Mexican federal government. The heat from the Trump administration has not let up. Just a few weeks ago, President Sheinbaum extradited 40 high-level drug targets to the United States, along with the elusive Canadian drug lord Ryan Wedding. So clearly, this operation against Mencho was Mexico bowing to the pressure. Somebody close to Mencho must have seen the writing on the wall and decided to cash in on that $15 million reward. Now, rumors are circulating online that it was an American Navy SEAL who took the shot that killed him. Whether that's true or not, it's undeniable at this point that the Americans were part of the operation. So, what comes next? I see a lot of chest thumping from the usual dumbasses online. Mencho's dead. You see, we took out the cartels in a day. We could do this all over the world. God bless Donald Trump for spreading American justice. Yeah. American justice, yet we have not had a single arrest over the Epstein files and had to fight tooth and nail just to get some of them released, while Kash Patel, the director of the FBI, shotguns beers with the Olympic hockey team. I get accused online of defending cartels when I criticize operations like this one against Mencho, which cause unbelievable second and third order consequences. Dead police officers, dead civilians, and general terror and disruption in the lives of literally millions of ordinary people, not just in Jalisco, but all over Mexico. You love cartels. No, I don't. I'm just an American, and I know the consequences of foreign intervention, not only for the foreign country being intervened in, but for my own country. I'm old enough to remember Iraq and Afghanistan. How did that work out? The Taliban is back running the country 20 years after we invaded to spread our justice. A group like the CJNG is in many ways similar to the Taliban, except they're not driven by ideology. Their motivation is money. And they employ tens, if not hundreds of thousands of the poorest, most dispossessed people in Mexico. And their illegal activities benefit almost every connected person in the ruling class, including the president and her ruling Morena party. How are you supposed to make war against that? Well, President Bukele did it in El Salvador. Yeah. Shh. MS-13 was a bum street gang. Drug traffickers wouldn't even consign them drugs. That's how irrelevant they were. Let's just look at the facts. The wholesale price of not just cocaine, but all hard drugs is the lowest it's ever been in the United States. That means more dope than ever is making it into the country. Secondly, the CJNG, according to reports, already has its second boss picked out, some guy named El Yogurt. I'm serious, that's an actual nickname, which is oddly adorable and so typically Mexican. He's apparently a logistics wizard, 29 years old, he's just a kid, and according to my sources close to the cartel in Jalisco, the military wing has already begun regrouping, rearming, and looking towards a bright or not so bright future. So where is this all going? I still think long-term Mexico and the rest of the world are getting better because I believe in God, and I know that God continues to give more blessings on an individual and on a societal level. If you look at history and how far we've come as a species, it's pretty obvious things tend to just keep improving through the upgrades in technology and consciousness, all of which come from God. But in the short term, I'm talking like the next 10 or 15 years, things in Mexico will continue to deteriorate because things here in the US will continue to deteriorate, and what happens here affects what happens in Mexico. Americans will certainly not stop buying drugs. In fact, the opposite will happen. The coming mass layoffs from AI displacement plus the government subsidies on levels surpassing what we saw during COVID will mean even more aimless, depressed people with money and an increase in the demand for drugs. There will be no shortage of work and no AI robots replacing those boys from the CJNG. Plus, the corruption and political polarization here in America will likely get worse. A potential war with Iran is about to break out and will further bankrupt our country, runaway inflation, the collapse of the dollar, etc., etc., etc. So you tell me, how does a broken, immoral nation who can't even arrest its pedophile leaders controlled by a foreign government, Israel, attempt to uphold the law in Mexico by force when it can't even uphold its own law here at home? In other words, let's maybe focus on the criminals we have running our own government before we cast aspersions at the criminals in a foreign country. So those are my thoughts. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Thank you for being part of the Connect family, and we will see you very soon. Take care.